Hello there, my name is Loki, and I'm glad to see you here with me today. Now, today we're going to be talking about how to homebrew up a world in D&D. Before anything else, if you hear a rumbling in the background, that is my AC unit. It is still hot here. Sorry about that, but I have to stay cool. Everything is running on hot. Yay. Now, we're going to be talking about writing talent and brewing up a homebrew world, so please bear with me because I will do this the craziest way ever. So, there you go. Have fun with that. So now, let's get started with that video. Now, we're going to be talking about my homebrew world, Ariastia. I can't pronounce words because I made up the name of the world. However, I can't pronounce it. That's kind of sad, huh? Anyway, we're going to be talking about this world. Yeah, this world in the corner. I had a friend help me make a map of it, so there you go. Now we're going to be more or less taking this into 3 steps. Step 1, I'm going to explain how my world works and how I basically ripped off multiple different forms of media to make this world. And then in step 2, that's where I'm going to ask you to figure out certain things, or I'm going to explain certain things so you can figure out how to do those things. And in step 3, I'm going to leave you with a few funny things here and there. So let's begin the video in 3, 2, 1. Now let's start with step 1. This world I made is basically more or less not meant for anyone else, but I usually host most of my D&D games in it. So, what is this world based off of? Well, it's based off of multiple different places and multiple different themes. For example, Tempest is a ripoff it's a ripoff basically off of an anime called That Time I Was Reincarnated as a Slime. So, with that ripped off version of that anime, and if you've seen it, it's good. But if you haven't seen it, don't bother. If you don't like isekais, then don't watch it. But it's a really good anime and light novel and manga. With that shameless shill for Fuse done, now what else did I add to this world? Well, there is another another name in here that you might know, might not know. It's called Grendels. If you know the Epic of Beowulf, I used the monster name from that to make sure that make sure it's a country. It's more of a warlike country, but it has warrior nobles, which they have to get their titles via combat with the recent queen or whatever. And there are a few things here and there that I scattered. Like the queen has the most power than the king. I took that from the recent recent queen from England, or the past queen. So rest in peace, Queenie Pooh. Anyway, the last country that I made into the big 3, that there's a big 3 system going on. Either way, the last member is Mercury. It's basically I ripped off the Predator movies, the countries that, or the planet from the Predators, fused that with other stuff, and then hammered it all together into a nice little country in my world. I'm not the best or eloquent of explaining certain things. However, in Mercury, you can more or less be king if you have the right amount of skills and knowledge and so on and so forth. Now let's start with second part of step 1. Let me tell you how I made this world. There are basic writing stuff in here, so please bear with me while I try my best to explain. But if you want to make a world kind of like a fantasy world or a techno-magical world, these are the questions you have to ask yourself. How do they communicate? How do they wage war? Or stuff like that. You set up a few questions, and then you create like reasons around those questions. It's more or less basic writing skills, but it is more or less how I did it. Now, when you are trying your best to make a homebrew world, please don't make it too overly complicated, where you have like, okay, here's the lineages and so on and so forth. if you want to make a world for D&D, I recommend leaving some things open-ended so you can have players to fill that in for you. What I'm saying is be a little lazy so you can have players have ideas to add to your world. With that said and done, let's add to what I just said and to going into step 2. Step 2, we're basically going to use our basic writing skills to make a homebrew world. For this example, I am still using my own homebrew world. However, I made a pantheon. Oh wow, my tongue can get tied easily. Anyway, a pantheon of different gods and goddesses. I have made primordial gods, and I made like adventurer god, and so on and so forth. These gods are more or less easily be taken over or stuff like that. If you wanted a better example of a world being awesome, or like you focus on one area, I recommend the first season of The Unexpectables. Link to them, it will be in the description or right here in the area box or iBox. I don't know how to do that yet, so yeah. Now we're trying our best to make a homebrew world, so depending on how big you want your world to be, you can actually leave some parts open-ended or try to make sure that you have it not that fine-tuned, but fine-tuned enough for your players to say, okay, what's this? And you have some answer for them. It's all about how you can incorporate your players' actions and like stuff into the game. For example, I have a game going on using this world. My players are currently based in Mercury, so they're taking over, or they're trying to look for a healer from the slums, trying to recruit him. I am alluding to some crazy stuff, so there you go. Did I rip off a couple of anime to do that? Yes. However, that's the fun of writing. You can take things you've seen and incorporate them into what you want. For example, you can have references out of the wazoo, but if your players don't know those references, then you could more or less tone it down or raise it up higher, because references are funny and you can make sure that everyone's laughing, even though they probably won't get it, or they might get it wrong. Anyway, let's start with step 3. Well, in step 3, we're going to try to do our best to incorporate or you have to try to incorporate what I said. It might be a rambling mess, but to basically to make everything sound a little bit better, writing is hard, okay? Writing is very hard, and you can overwrite or underwrite everything. You got to find that in between where you have enough details for your world so you can actually say, hey, this is what the country does in, for example, wartime, or this is what the country does in peace, times of peace, or there are so many other things that you can add to that, so you can find that fine-tuned middle ground where you can add to it later, or your players can add to it later, and then you could actually incorporate your players' actions into the world. Because I want to make my own world a world where I can reuse it and say, okay, these players have made their mark on the world. What can I do to make sure that their mark will be everlasting? Now, when you want to make a living world, or a world with a lot of NPCs, gotta remember, make them use brains. And they're like, oh, yeah, but this is meant for more roleplay heavy games, or games with more experienced players, because there are some horror stories of a DM trying to give NPC a brain and his players going nuts on him. But this isn't a horror story channel, so I'm not gonna actually go too deep into that. But when you're creating a homebrew world, please don't go over exaggerating to a point where this is how the economy works, this is how everything. No, don't stress yourself on the little things about your homebrew world. As long as you have like a timeline or what level of technology they have and how they communicate with each other, and if you want to add gods, you can add gods, and so on and so forth. Just make a list of what you want in the world, then work with that list. If you need help with friends, always go to your friends that are probably more skilled than you in certain things, for example, politics or economy, so they can give you at least some ideas of where to take your world into. Always lean on those with the most knowledge and the most ability to share that knowledge. Now, when you're able to understand that knowledge and incorporate that into your world, there you go. You did it. You made your first ever homebrew world. However, you got to make sure that it stands the test. What type of test? The test of the players, because the players will ask questions on the fly, and you have to take the punches and roll with them. So make sure that you take those punches really well. Don't let them hit you in the jaw unless you have a glass jaw. Glass jaws are always fun to have. But if you leave enough room for your players to wiggle, you can actually do it. You have more wiggle room for your players to be creative, or enough wiggle room for them to creative. You could actually make your world very fun or not entertaining, but engaging for your players, as long as you can make it a good key mix of the two. Now, if you have found that balance, or if you want to go overboard with the details and this is how it works and this is how XYZ did it, then write a book. That is another thing you should do. If you want to add so much detail where the world does not work for different players or your players, scrap it or hold on to it and make it into a story that you want to write yourself. Because this is a fun thought experiment, in my opinion, on how well you can make a world open-ended and enough so you can have players to interact with it, or how detailed you can make the world so you can make your own story. But yeah, with that all said and done, I think that's about 13 or so minutes. So I want to say thank you for watching. If I ramble too much and this is a bad video, please tell me in the comments below. With all that said and done, oh wow, my tongue is getting tied again. Wow. Anyway, with that all said and done, thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more. And if you can, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe again. And then make sure you hit that notification bell to all so you can get all my new videos or see the posts that I make online. Follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky, I think. The links are in my channel description on my channel. There you go. And if you can, have fun with the world building. Make sure you have enough room to wiggle, because wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.